bean casserole is a classic comfort food, and it's perfect for potluck. I see it at pretty much every potluck we ever have at our church. I've got some butter that I melted in a pan, and I sprinkled in a 1/4 cup of flour. And I'll just whisk this together. I'm basically making a roux as the basis for a sauce. And I'll just let that cook around for a couple of minutes. And while that's cooking, I'll measure some milk and half and half, which I think makes for a pretty darn good green bean casserole. I'll do 2½ cups of whole milk and a little half and half, about half a cup. All right, this is cooked and it's looking good. So I'm just gonna pour the milk and whisk it as it goes in. With the classic green bean casserole, creamy soup is one of the ingredients. So this is sort of to replace the creamy soup. All right, this is gonna take a few minutes to bubble up. I'm gonna go ahead and season it with a little salt, plenty of pepper. Why is black pepper so good in white sauce? They just go together. And a little cayenne. This is another thing that sets it apart from the traditional green bean casserole. It's got a little bit of a kick to it. Now I'll just let this cook for a few minutes and thicken and bubble up. And I'm gonna grate some cheddar cheese. You can also do Monterey Jack cheese, which would keep the dish nice and white and creamy. Okay, now I'll let the cheese melt into the sauce. This is gonna turn into a wonderful, delicious cheese sauce. And then I'm gonna add this skillet full of utter deliciousness. I just fried 4 slices of bacon cut into pieces in a skillet over medium heat for about 2 minutes. Then I added a half a large onion that I diced, a finely diced red bell pepper, 3 cloves of minced garlic, then cooked them for 3 to 5 minutes. Oh, this smells so good. Bacon smells good no matter what you cook it with. Then I'll just stir it. And that's the sauce for the green bean casserole. Okay, now for the green beans. I blanched these green beans, and that's part of what sets this apart from your average green bean casserole, which is commonly made with canned green beans. I just blanched the green beans, threw them into boiling water for about a minute, minute and a half, and then I plunged them into ice water to stop the cooking process. And what that did is it just brightened them up, made them really, really beautiful and green, and it's gonna let them stay crisp in this casserole. All right, I'll just even those up. And then the sauce gets poured all over the top. Oh my word, this looks good. And it smells good. It's gonna taste good. Who knew green bean casserole could be so decadent? Yummy. Then I'll just spread it to even it out. And then for the top of the casserole, I like to use panko breadcrumbs, which are nice and crisp and crunchy. The traditional topping for green bean casserole is usually French fried onions or crumbled potato chips, and I like those too. But this is just a nice updated change. All right, you gotta try this. It is so good. Now I'm just gonna cover it up, stick it in the fridge, and then in the morning before church, I'll bake it.
Apple stuffing in a loaf pan, GZ.
This is
You've got
brilliant.
the walnuts, just you can either chop them with a knife or crunch them up with those strong hands of yours we see you working out. And then the apples, you can just do like a medium dice, skin on, skin off, doesn't matter, okay? I know
Yes,
Katie
Chef.
wants the skin on for health reasons, right? But it's the holidays, so
Skin
do whatever
on?
you want.
You
No,
want skin
take the
on?
skin off.
Sure.
One
Oh,
apple
you
skin
can't have
on,
any.
one apple skin off. You can
Oh,
handle it,
boy.
Iron Chef.
I can.
And I'm just chopping up some scallions here, white and green parts, that are gonna go into the stuffing. In my pan here, on low now, I'm just gonna drop some butter in. There we go. Okay, so some butter goes in first, and then to that, I'm gonna add in, turn that up, some onion and some celery, just all at the same time. A nice pinch of salt, okay, or 2. Some black pepper, fresh thyme, and then is it the holidays without sage?
100%. You
I
gotta
mean,
have sage.
Put a little sage in there. All right, so this is just gonna move around, and everything's gonna get nice and tender, translucent. Gonna put the scallions in here as well. A little bit of an oniony bite, ×2. You get the white onion. You can also use a sweet onion if you have that in your cool, dark place with your potatoes. and then the scallions on top. So you're just gonna let this sizzle. Now, as this cooks down, it's gonna end up looking like this. That's when you wanna add in the garlic. All right, so to that, I'm gonna add in some parsley. And then I like to use dried cranberries, holidays again, right? But I always have dried cranberries or cherries, interchangeable kind of, and then just mix that around. Okay, so this is just, you get it in the bag, you can get the stuffing bread, and then there go the apples that Jeezy hooked us up with, and then some walnuts for a little bit of crunch. Gonna get in everything from our pan here. Remember, it's the celery, it's the onions, scallions, garlic, that butter, parsley,
It's amazing
thyme, sage.
butter and sage smell like Thanksgiving.
I mean,
does. I'm instantly-
seriously,
I'm there.
right? And then give it a nice little toss.
You put egg in there?
No egg, it's actually gonna hold together, I find that, the day of it's a scoop and then the day after it's a good slice. You gotta let it cool down in order to slice it properly.
So what do you look for, seriously? Like wet sand?
Well, when you're making stuffing, to me, it's kind of like when you're reducing something, right? If it goes too far, like say grits, just add some more liquid and it'll be the right texture that you want. The same with stuffing. You can add a lot of moisture to it. You can just cook it out because we're gonna put this in the oven at 350 degrees. So this is about 2 and some change of stock. Obviously, turkey, if you can find it around the holidays.
You're eyeballing that, like you said. Like if you
Yeah.
feel it needs more, you add more. It's not like
It's an eyeball thing. I always say if you add too much moisture, you're just gonna just cook it longer and the moisture will evaporate out of it. I've got a loaf pan here that's been completely bottom and side sprayed with some cooking spray. And then just right in there. Now, this isn't a light thing. This is a packet-like brown sugar moment. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna get it in there and press it down.
if leftover, you fry it, put an egg on it.
Eggs Benedict the
It's
next
endless.
day. I do it all the time. It's my
This is
favorite.
a great idea.
Okay, leave that there on the pan for a nice crunchy moment. Okay, 350 degrees for about an hour, okay? And then after that hour is up, you're gonna take it off the aluminum foil off of the lid, let it get a little crunchy, let it cool down, and then you've got a beautiful
Oh my.
moment like this.
Look at how crushed.
It's completely cooled.
Wow.
Bring it out.
It looks like a fruitcake.
That's what I thought it was. I take this over.
Serrate.
cake
Need a
any day.
serrate.
Yeah, get yourself a nice serrated knife.
This is so organized. Stuffing is usually so messy.
It is. It's a
It
chaotic
is.
thing.
I'm gonna do a transfer.
Oh my
Wow,
goodness.
that takes goes a little hello.
Y'all, I sat in the right seat.
You sure did.
All right, let's get in here.
Slide it on down.
That tastes like the Thanksgiving meal all in one.
Yeah?
I love all the sage. To me, that's the key to really good stuffing / dressing, to have sage. And then the sweetness of the cranberry and apple.
I have some bread here that I cut into slices and I'm gonna toast for my stuffing. When I was a kid, my sister and I would sit in front of the little black and white TV and cut toast squares for our stuffing. That was always our job while we watched the Macy's Day Parade. It's one of my favorite food memories. So I've got my stuffing base going here. I've got onions and celery. I threw a little garlic in there. Good stuff happening. So I have some spicy sausage. I'm gonna go ahead and whip these guys out of the casings, kind of break them up into little sort of bite-sizey pieces. All right, so we just get it in there and kind of chop it all up. I'm gonna give my hands a rinse. Some apples, some sage. I'm gonna grab my walnuts. And I'm gonna get chopping, get these guys into my stuffing. I have about a half a bunch of sage that I chopped and I'm adding to my stuffing. So I have onions and garlic and celery, my sausage and my apples and walnuts in there. So this is smelling huge and flavorful, and that sage, when you add it, just gives a burst of herby, earthy goodness. So
We need a little liquid in there, so I'm gonna go ahead and continue on with my apple theme today with a little bit of apple cider, about a cup or so. Good stuff. We're gonna let that cook down. We're gonna add a little chicken stock to that in a bit, but this is looking beautiful. I'm gonna turn this down. Ah, happy, happy girl I am. I toasted and diced up some very rustic country bread. I took the crusts off, toasted it just so it's stiff but no color. Otherwise that would make it rock hard. And it's all diced up. That takes me right back to my childhood. That was always my job. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and add this sausagey, appley goodness to this. Oh, ah, good. So we're gonna mix this together, and I'm gonna go ahead and moisten up the whole shooting match with some chicken stock. So here we go, some chicken stock. Okay. And you know what else we're gonna do? We're gonna give this a little taste as we're doing this. And you know what? We need a bit of seasoning. Oh, this is gonna be good, good stuff. Sage really just brings such a lovely earthiness to this with the sausage and the apples. Like you get that spicy sausage and the sweet apple, and then the celery and the onions. This is a great stuffing. Beautiful. Now I've got my baking dish right here. A little sausage for me. Okay, my baking dish right here. Go ahead and get this guy all in there. Look at that. That was a cinch. Okay. Okay, so, let's get this guy in the oven. I need a couple of these guys, because guess what it is? It's turkey time. So, here we go, bottom oven. See you later, stuffing. Yes, all right. So, it's brown and crispy on top, and that's exactly what we're looking for. All right, stuffing time. Apple, sausage, sage, walnuts, woohoo!
So the carrots were looking really good at my market, and the best part of buying them is that they usually come with their tops. So I say, found a great carrot, pesto it.
Pesto it.
I am making my roasted carrots with carrot top pesto.
Oh,
and I love this technique because it's root to stem or nose to tail cooking, and it cuts down on the waste,
Nice.
which we love. The thing about carrot tops is they can vary from carrot to carrot, so you gotta kind of give them a little taste. I just cut them off, keep the carrots separate, and then I just pick the tops. I don't really want too much of that stem. Sometimes they can be a little bit bitter, so if you're making this pesto, you just have to taste and kind of adjust. Maybe a little extra honey or a little pepper if you need it, right? So we just stem those tops, and we'll deal with those in a second. For the carrots themselves, I leave a little bit of that on, especially in summer and spring when the carrots are tender. A little bit of olive oil to start, right? And that way, everything else that you put on there will stick, right? I've got between 12 and 14 carrots here, and I'm gonna load it with 2 teaspoons of just sweet curry powder.
Whoa.
Ooh, oh, I love this recipe already. Everything about it, I'm loving.
Yeah, I mean, the minute you put the curry powder on the carrots, they just turn into something else, right?
And it doesn't look like you peeled them either.
No. I've got my food processor, Katie, and even though I'm using the oven, I am otherwise following your philosophy. Pepper, right on there, right?
Kindred spirits, Alex.
Yes. Oh, I agree, though. Come on, you know, one piece of equipment, one appliance, and we're done. You notice how the guys are like, oh,
Yeah, I mean,
girls'
like,
night.
I
You guys
also
want
like
us
that
to
you left
leave?
them whole.
I mean, we're here too. We have feelings, okay? We like carrots too.
Do you?
Yeah, we really do.
I love a whole roasted carrot, though, instead of cutting it up. Like, there's something, like, it's more filling somehow.
Yeah, it's the hot dog of your world, Katie. I have no doubt.
We did
Yes.
that once, remember?
Yeah,
we
we
did the
made
hot
our
dog
own.
carrot. Still not.
I'm
I also
so
like
excited
these-
about the curry powder.
These are one thing put outside in the grill when it's nice hot flame, just like this.
Really?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
See, it's so funny. I only think oven, but I would think they'd be really cool.
Burn them,
Just
you
low
burn 'em.
heat, you burn them.
You burn them, and you let them cook on a slow after. But you got to burn them first. They're so great.
This dish is also because I'm fighting the I'm so tired of carrots with cumin and yogurt on every
Yes.
restaurant menu. This is fighting the burnout of that. So I'm gonna roast these in the oven at 375 for 15 to 20 minutes until they're cooked through. And at in the last like 2 minutes of cooking, we're gonna put a little brown sugar and pop them back in the oven so the brown sugar doesn't burn.
Alex, great idea putting that brown sugar on there. It's gonna get all sweet and caramelized.
So here are some that are cooled.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you can smell them,
I
right?
want one now.
That. And then a little pesto with that. Even though a food processor chops everything up, I find the best use of it is to get everything a little bit ready before you even start chopping. So this is a cup of basil leaves, which I'm gonna add in. And you really need the basil to kind of balance the bitterness of the carrot tops. This is about almost a cup of carrot tops, 3/4 of a cup, just layered in there. Always a pinch of salt, preferably coarse salt to help get everything going. 1/2 cup of walnuts. So underrated, walnuts. 3 tablespoons of olive oil and a tablespoon of honey.
So Alex, what do you think the carrot top taste is like with the basil and everything? How's that work?
To me, it's super grassy, the carrot tops. And it's almost like the carrots miss their tops. You know, they go well together. It's like mowed lawn meets flowers.
It's kind of like if it grows together, it goes together. Like with the drinking wine from the region, it's the same thing with the carrot tops and the carrots.
Totally.
Did it right. A little, is it on?
Yeah, I think I did it.
I think
Look
you did.
at
I
them
saw
over
you-
there, the peanut gallery. They were giggling.
Yeah, are you guys like laughing at me and expecting?
Let's be honest, Jeff. Let's be honest. Yes, we were.
Yes, we were.
Alex and I are just gonna have our own show.
Yeah,
I
we're
know.
just gonna chat
God
it out,
bless you.
Katie. I can't take this. By the way, big on the pulsing. And it may look a little bit herby, maybe a little dry. Don't be afraid to add a little bit of water.
Oh.
A couple tablespoons. Really, really underrated and cheap ingredient, water. Finish with a little bit, you know, of just spinning. And feel, Jeff,
I didn't say.
Yeah, I feel you're sending like
No, I love the top
food
of the
processor shock waves in my direction.
It is.
Okay.
He's like hoping that it won't go on.
I know, I got him. It makes me giggle.
Big fan of the scrape down in the middle. Oh God, I'm never gonna be able to put this back on. Oh yeah.
Oh, first try.
You did. She nailed that
Add
one.
a touch more water.
I'm really into this water in the pesto. I didn't know about that.
So underrated. Touch more olive oil just to bring
because
it up.
pesto can be so heavy. There's so much oil in it. That's a great,
Yeah.
great
You know, if
tip.
you don't have walnuts, I'm getting into using breadcrumbs instead of nuts.
Really?
Really, I love the mouthfeel of it. It's really interesting.
You mean that kind of sandiness, like a
Yeah,
what, like a toasted panko or
It's
what?
different. It's really different.
Great.
All right. So what do you guys like to pesto? Since we went boating already, now we're pestoing.
We're in pestoing. We voted.
I love a pistachio pesto with pasta. It's off the charts
Ooh.
delicious.
I'm like an arugula with sun-dried tomatoes, but like a real hearty arugula. It's peppery.
Big one.
Balance it out with the little sun-dried tomatoes for sweetness.
The Papa
and
Bear
then make it
arugula.
hot.
The bigger ruler.
Yeah, like a little Calabrian chili in there.
Oh, wow.
I know that this may come as a shock to you, but I love kale pesto.
Oh,
No,
come
I
on,
can't
Katie.
be. What about you, Sunny?
Listen, my favorite pesto is collard green pesto. One year I was growing collards in my garden and I had so many, I just said, let me pesto them. Delicious. But instead of pine nuts, I use pecans, which made sense to me because collard greens always remind me of North Carolina. And pecans are big there.
Oh.
Oh, I love that.
It's delicious. You gotta try it sometime. Pecans, collards, pesto.
That's
Good combo.
delicious.
Wow.
I've just seasoned this up a little bit. I leave the pesto like this. When I am just about to serve it, or, you know, right before, then I add the acid. A little bit of apple cider vinegar, might throw a little on the carrots. Not before. Keep it vibrant green, and when you're ready to serve, just give it a dash of vinegar.
Because the acid will make it less green, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Less verdant.
Kills the color. I also just feel like when the acid is added fresh and it doesn't have time to sit, in this case, it just tastes better.
It's like a squeeze of lemon, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you could really add lemon here, but I kind of like, I like a little apple cider or
Here's the dolloper.
classic distilled white vinegar would be really good. Something really punchy. It's not, you know, it's not a delicate moment for rice wine right now. And then just literally, I like to mix them a little bit just to drag any last bit of seasoning off. And then you literally can just lay them.
This is a beautiful dish.
So pretty.
Little tic-tac-toe, little 1972 vibes in there.
Yeah, I like that.
A little bit more on top just to let people know that there is no yogurt or cumin on this dish.
There's no fresh mint. There's no.
No. Well, Katie has the mint so perfect with the eggplant, I thought. And you use those carrot tops. You know, you feel guilty when you bring your carrots home and you just cut and throw away. And in fact, a lot of farmers, they have just a big bag of tops. You can just ask them for the tops.
A lot of them give them to the animals, you know, and it's a really good, makes good compost also.
The goats.
The goats, everything.
Is your hamster?
My hamster, I was gonna
Bopper?
say that, I want to bring him up again, but Bopper just eats those stems like
Bopper
crazy. The stems, that you didn't throw away, by the way.
Bopper would love this dish.
She would.
Well, Bopper's gonna have to wait in line because Mama's hungry. This is just a little bit, and you know, it's fun to, I'm doing the Jeezy gather up.
You gotta do that. I'm telling you, it's the way to live life.
Jeffrey makes, if you don't know this about him, he's a big maker of the perfect bite, which I love. And that's when you know food is really an act of love, right?
Can't wait to taste this.
Sweet potato and celery root fries. I bake them till perfectly crisp outside and fluffy inside. Now that's a sunny fry. We're gonna start with some cayenne pepper. And this is really, really good and quick too. 450 in an oven, quick to make. We're gonna do a little bit of garlic powder. Then some Hungarian paprika. Nice smoky flavor. And then finally, the major spices is going to be my Chinese 5-spice. Now, I love Chinese 5-spice now. Never had in my kitchen before. And then I went to the grocery store, I saw it, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna buy it and commit to using it eventually. So in here, a hint of cinnamon, some fennel seed, cloves, star anise, and Szechuan peppercorn. So the cool thing about this is, it's like a complete seasoning thing all in one. Dump it in, and you got that hint of cinnamon that I really love to go with the sweet potatoes. All right, so a little bit of salt, some pepper, and that's it. This is gonna go great on top of our sweet potatoes and our celery root fries. We're gonna roast in the oven. All right, so we're gonna take 2 sweet potatoes and a celery root. Ever seen this one before? Well, if you haven't seen this before, you're right in line with my grocery store, because every time I go to buy it, I have to tell them what it is so they can ring it up properly. Basically, this is a root. Stalks come out and they look like celery, but not the celery that you eat. But this root has such an intense celery flavor. I love it. All right, got these all done. Sweet potatoes and celery root ready to be roasted in our oven. Get these all on the baking sheet. Looks like I have too many. All right, so I don't want to crowd them. When we put them on the baking sheet, we want to crisp them into fries. The whole idea is to give them plenty of space, all right? So that looks like they all have room to breathe. Gonna drizzle over some oil. Cooking oil or olive oil, this is gonna really tastes great. And then sprinkle on half of our spice blend. You really gotta try the Chinese spice, man. I'm really into buying things new that I've never used before and working them into some recipes. It's not too bad of a deal. All right. The reason for the oil is we wanna make sure the seasoning sticks on to our celery root and our sweet potato. And at the same time, it also helps with it crisping. So this is going into a 450-degree oven, about 30 to 40 minutes. Just check it, give them a shake halfway through so they don't get all toasted to one side and not the other. And then you're a step away from eating your sweet potato and celery root fries. Roasted sweet potato fries and our celery root fries. Never had a celery root before? Roast it in the oven, give it a try and a taste. It's really good. The flavor is amazing. And then, you know what I'm tasting now? That Chinese 5-spice. It really works in this recipe.
Zucchini can be a little bland, but trust me, there's nothing bland about my baked spinach and zucchini. It's got lots of great flavors in it. So I'm starting with about a pound of zucchini. And you want to choose zucchini that are about the same size. You don't want like big, thick zucchini because they get kind of woody in the middle. These are really small and just really tender. And I sliced them all about 1/2 inch thick. I've heated about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in a pan. I'm just gonna put the zucchini in. Okay, so that's a pound of zucchini, and I've got 6 scallions I've chopped up. Put them all in, and give it a little stir. So I'm just gonna saute this for about 3 minutes, just until it gets softened a little bit. In the meantime, I'm gonna prep the garlic. So I've got 2 cloves of garlic. This is the way a chef once taught me this, is if you smash the garlic, you get the best flavor from it, and it's really easy to chop. Just like that. And just cook this for 1 minute. I never cook garlic for more than 1 minute, otherwise it gets that burnt flavor. You want it just like a hint of great garlic. Okay, I'm gonna turn off the heat, and next is spinach. And I'm gonna use frozen spinach instead of fresh. It is so much easier, and it's really good. So I've got 2 10-ounce packages of frozen spinach that I've kind of pressed out most of the water, but you don't want all the water pressed out because otherwise it gets really dry. So there are very few vegetables that are better frozen, but this is one of them, spinach, as opposed to huge piles of fresh spinach. Just stir that in. Okay, next is a cup of cooked basmati rice. I just followed the directions on the back of the package. Just give some substance to the dish. And if there's any liquid from the spinach, it'll absorb it. Okay, next I've got 2 herbs. 1/4 cup of minced fresh parsley, gives it lots of fresh flavor. And 1/4 cup of julienne fresh basil. Okay, next is a little nutmeg. Just great with this dish. Just a hint of it. 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, because I think everything needs a little acid. It kind of wakes up all the flavors. 2 teaspoons of salt. May seem like a lot, but this vegetable's a little bland and you want the flavors to really pop. Sprinkle it around so it's well distributed. 1 teaspoon of pepper. This is a great make-ahead dish. You can put the whole thing together in advance and just throw it in the oven before dinner. Okay, give that a big stir. So for the custard, I've got 4 extra large eggs, 3/4 cup of heavy cream, a little bit of butter. I melted 2 tablespoons of butter that are gonna go right in. And you wanna whisk them in because if the butter's warm, you don't wanna cook the eggs. I'm gonna add 1/4 cup of Parmesan cheese. I'm gonna put more Parmesan on top. Okay, so that's the custard. So you can put this all in one big dish, but I thought it'd be so nice to put them in little individual cast iron skillets so everybody gets their own skillet. So I've greased the inside of it. I'm gonna get 6 skillets, so a 1/6 of the vegetable, just put it right in. I'm just gonna pour the custard right over the top. I'm just gonna top it with a little Parmesan cheese and some Gruyere. Just grate it right on top. So they go into the oven, 350 degrees for 20 minutes. And happily, I have some already baking, so I can show you how good they look. They smell so good. So good.
So I've got mushrooms going right here. I cooked them in a little bit of butter. That's gonna give, you know how usually you put in like the can of condensed mushroom soup. And now I'm gonna add to it my celery. I want the celery to still have some bite to it. That's why I'm putting it in after the mushrooms.
Oh, I like this dish already.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna add to it a little bit of garlic and some Worcestershire sauce. I always like Worcestershire with mushrooms. I think it just brings out their meatiness. And some fresh thyme. I'm gonna crank up the heat a little bit on this, and I'm gonna salt it. Salt the mushrooms after you cook them down instead of when you first put them in the pan. Otherwise, it just pulls out the water too fast and you don't get any caramelization. So for our creamy dressing, I'm actually starting off with a little bit of yogurt. So I do a little plain yogurt, and I've got my mayonnaise and some Parmesan cheese.
It's gonna be good.
Okay.
It's gonna be good.
And I've got sherry vinegar here.
The best vinegar.
Yes. Some salt
Don't you find that
and some pepper.
string bean salad cold? The beans, it's one of those dishes, the beans have to be really cold.
Yeah.
Like you put them back in the fridge and keep them cold, so you get that cold snap.
Totally, and it is important to blanch those green beans.
Yes.
Yes. So I took my mushroom celery mixture out of the skillet and I spread it onto a sheet pan so that it would cool off more quickly. I've got my dressing already here, and I'm gonna go ahead and put these green beans straight in. All right, so green beans go in. Now you see, after I blanched these green beans, I put them onto a paper towel lined pan so any extra water gets absorbed, because water's really the enemy in a salad. You do not want it to be all wet and soggy. It dilutes your dressing. All right, let's put our mushrooms and celery. We've got garlic, thyme going in there. And now, because I like a little bit more fresh crunch, I'm just gonna put some romaine in here as well.
Nice.
Yeah, I like this fresh moment and having the tang of the yogurt and the sherry vinegar. I think it really just wakes everything up on Thanksgiving. And I'm just gonna toss all the dressing, get it nice and coated, and we're just gonna get it all covered. I like Parmesan cheese in there. What do you usually have on a green bean casserole?
Do it. Do it.
Well, you got some almonds, so let's
yeah,
put
I like
those.
that.
Oh, really? I've never had that on a
Yeah,
green bean casserole.
I like little almonds, and you always have the crunchy fried onions.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, so get those right on there. So it's all the elements of the green bean casserole, but made really fresh tasting.
Oh,
I could not stop eating this.
I'm going for the salad first.
I'm not sure what's more important. How welcome all these textures are at the Thanksgiving table. When you're having like purees and turkey and you just, the crunch of this, the vibrancy. Also, everything is individually seasoned. Because you cooked the celery, the mushrooms together, it just built the base. It tastes like a green bean salad and a green bean casserole, and then it just stops. And it goes in a different direction of a juicy salad with the nuts, the crunchy onions. This is dynamite.
Garlic Hasselback potatoes with an herb sour cream. Crispy oven roasted potatoes sliced like a deck of cards with slivers of garlic thrown in the slices. Dollop them with a fresh parsley sour cream. It's banging. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a little butter in here, about half a stick to melt it. Some olive oil. We're gonna toss the potatoes with this a little bit later, as soon as we're done putting everything together. Okay, we're gonna let that melt. Let me show you how to do these potatoes. Really simple. We're gonna slice some garlic and put them on the inside. So we do maybe 2 or 3 cloves of garlic, thinly sliced, as thin as you can get it. If you're a garlic lover like me, it doesn't really matter though. All right, so here's how you do the potatoes. A little trick, find your wooden spoon, cradle the potato in there, and just start making some slices across. Right? Halfway through, I flip it around, more slices. The good thing about this, makes room for the garlic, and then when we put this in the oven to roast, these tops are gonna be so crunchy. Yeah, one last chunk of garlic in our Hasselback potatoes. Okay, so I've got the butter and the olive oil. I'm just gonna kind of drizzle it over the top and toss it with my hand. Salt and pepper, really quick. Lots of salt. It's all gonna mix together when I toss it. A little bit of pepper. All right, both hands in. Don't worry about the garlic coming out, man. It's so packed in there with that raw potato. It's not going anywhere, and if it does, it's gonna taste nice and crunchy. So don't stress too much. All right, those are good, ready to go. I'm gonna put these in 400 degrees for about an hour, just like a baked potato. Speaking of baked potato, we've got a sour cream herb sauce that I'm gonna put on this. It's gonna taste amazing. Let me get some sour cream really quick. Sour cream. I love this recipe because, man, this is just really simple, but it pays off really big in the end. Let me get a bowl. I can mix it in here. So about a ½ cup of sour cream. No need to super measure. A little salt, a little pepper. You can do this with like vegetables. Of course, it's great over a baked potato, and it's gonna go great with our garlic Hasselback potatoes. Some garlic powder. Just a little bit. It's gonna go well. Because you got the garlic in the potatoes, you might add some garlic on top too. And some parsley. Some fresh parsley. A couple of leaves really quick. I'm gonna chop these up put them in, stir it, and set it to the side. And they're ready to top our garlic Hasselback potatoes. Now remember, this is really simple, and look how pretty it is in the end. You just slice them like a deck of cards. Don't go all the way down to the bottom. Put a couple of slivers of garlic in there. And these come out so hot, and they're so tiny, I want to pop them in my mouth. So add a little dollop of that herbed sour cream we made earlier. It's gonna cool it off for you.
So I was planning on making roasted Brussels sprouts one night, and I realized I completely ran out of time. So I was thinking, how could I do this really fast? I thought, I think I'll slice them really thinly and just saute them. But how do you slice these thinly without taking a lot of time? So I devised a system. There's a slicing disc in the food processor. So what I did was, I just put them in, and this is the genius part. It takes no time at all. So all I did is just trim the ends a little bit and just put them right in. I mean, how fast is that? So I'm just going to slice these Brussels sprouts and then saute them with a little oil and butter. And then just to give them extra flavor, I'm going to drizzle them with balsamic vinegar. Wait to see how easy this is. Slicing these by hand would take forever, but I love the food processor. Should be a national holiday for the guy who invented it. I think it was like in the 70s. It wasn't that long ago. This is 2 12-ounce packages of Brussels sprouts. And that's it. I mean, that's pretty easy, right? Okay, so now I'm going to saute them. Get these guys out of the way. So I'm going to heat up a large saute pan. You really want a big surface because you really want to brown them. 2 tablespoons of olive oil. 2 tablespoons of butter. Olive oil has a high burning temperature. The butter gives it flavor. Just let that melt. It's a really simple side dish. And if you have a few leftover Brussels sprouts in your refrigerator, you just shred them up in no time. Actually, in the summer, I like to shred Brussels sprouts like this, and I make Brussels sprout slaw. Okay, that's nice and melted. I'm just gonna dump this whole thing in. It looks like it's not all going to fit, but it does. It really cooks down. So just put them all in. And now lots and lots of salt. Lots of pepper. I want them to taste great. And just saute it for about 7 minutes until they're all nicely cooked and really tender. And if it looks a little dry, you can always add a little more olive oil or butter. And if you're braver than me, you can flip it without a spoon. But I don't know. I feel like it's going to get all over the kitchen. See, it's all going to turn green. It's very important when you slice the Brussels sprouts to slice the green leaves as well, because it really makes it look gorgeous. See, it's already cooking down. Not bad. Cleanup's a little messy, but it's fun. I'm going to turn this on a little high. I love when they get a little caramelized and browned. This is like my favorite Christmas dinner. Is a roast loin of pork, sauteed shredded Brussels sprouts, and I make a potato and celery root puree. So good. It's so cozy in the winter. It's also great to make on Thanksgiving when you're short of oven space. I always try and do a few things on top of the stove. And actually, I don't want to move it around all the time, because if it sits a little bit on the bottom, it'll get nice and browned. So just let it sit a little bit and then toss it. Let it sit a little bit and then toss it again. A little more salt, if you can believe it. A little more pepper. You can actually do this ahead, too. You can prep the sprouts and leave them in plastic bags in the fridge, and then just saute them before dinner. My mother used to make Brussels sprouts, but they were boiled, and they were just, like, dreadful. Sorry, Mom. And when I started the store in East Hampton in the mid-'80s, we used to make roasted Brussels sprouts, which nobody could believe, because they're sort of crisp and delicious. This is the next generation of Brussels sprouts, sautéed. Okay, these are just about done, I think. Ooh. Ah, very hot. So good. I think they're done. One last toss. Perfect. See how they really do cook down? So now off the heat, I'm gonna drizzle it with balsamic vinegar, and that edge is gonna make them taste so good. Just drizzle enough on, just like this is really syrupy, old balsamic vinegar, and it's delicious. Okay, that's it. Time to plate it up. So, of course, I always have a white plate, which I think is just gorgeous. Makes the Brussels sprouts look best. Just put it on the platter. Just like that. Maybe a little salt. Another drizzle of balsamic. I mean, how good does that look? I would say this isn't your grandmother's Brussels sprouts. This is a new age of Brussels sprouts. They're so good. And the balsamic is fantastic. 4 ingredients. I mean, how easy is that? I love these.
I'm gonna make a green bean casserole, but I'm gonna make it my way. All right, I'm gonna thinly slice 1 large red onion, and I'm gonna marinate it or have it sit in buttermilk for a couple of hours until it's time to fry. And the reason I like for my onions to sit in buttermilk, of course, so the flour and the dredge will stick to the onions. All right, so I have my onions here, thinly sliced. I'm gonna add some buttermilk just to submerge it into the bowl. I'm gonna let these hang out in the fridge until it's time to dredge and fry. All right, put that in there. So my green bean casserole starts off with fresh green beans that I'm snapping. You gotta take the ends off, the rough ends. And I'm just gonna boil them really quick, get them nice and soft. I'm gonna make a bechamel sauce with a little garlic powder, some milk, some sherry, which is typical in low country cuisine. I'm gonna bake it off and put crispy red onions on top. I'm snapping about 2 pounds of green beans, and this will be enough for a 9x13 casserole. I'm gonna boil them for a few minutes till they get a little soft. Remember, I'm gonna finish cooking it in the oven. While that's boiling, I have some baby bella mushrooms here. I'm gonna add it to my casserole. So there's green beans and mushrooms. I'm just gonna saute them in my cast iron skillet here with a little bit of butter. And when I saute them, I'm just gonna draw out some of that water because mushrooms do have a tendency to carry a lot of water. Hit it with some salt, help extract some of the water out of the mushrooms. I know when mushrooms are done cooking when the color starts to turn from this kind of like a grayish white to like a darker brown color. I want to grab my green beans because they're done, drain them and get them on some ice to stop the cooking process. Don't want them to cook anymore because I do have to put them in the oven. So the mushrooms look great. I'm gonna take them out and start my bechamel sauce, which is basically a cream sauce. I'm basically making a cream of mushroom sauce. The start of a bechamel sauce is normally butter and flour, then milk. All right, so I'm gonna add 4 tablespoons of butter. I'm gonna add a 1/4 cup of flour. That's how it gets nice and thick. And I'm basically making a roux. Add a little bit of my sherry in there. I'd say about a 1/4 cup of sherry. Typically in a bechamel sauce, you will not find sherry. Just wanna give it a dry type of wine flavor. I'm gonna add in about 2 cups of milk. And you actually wanna use a whisk because you gotta break down the flour, otherwise you'll have clumps of flour in your bechamel. Now I wanna season my bechamel with cracked black pepper and some garlic powder. Starting to smell that. It's gonna take about 5 minutes until the sauce gets nice and thick. I wanna actually add back my mushrooms at this time. So this is perfect texture that I'm looking for. It just coats the spoon. I wanna turn it off. Let me grab my onions, super simple dredge. I'm gonna use about a cup of flour, a heavy teaspoon of my all-purpose seasoning. Just in case you don't know, I got some sweet paprika, some onion powder, garlic powder, salt, pepper. So just covering the onions in the flour. I have some oil that I have nice and hot back there in a cast iron skillet. I'm just gonna drop it in the oil, fry it up, super simple. Drop it like it's hot, because it is. They're golden brown. I'm gonna drop them off here. Got my green beans. So I'm gonna assemble the casserole, put the cream of mushroom in there, bake it off for a little bit, and then put the onions on later. I want it to still stay crispy on top. I want to add my cream of mushroom right into this casserole dish. Mix it up. All right, I'm gonna pop my green bean casserole in the oven. Again, the oven is at 350. I wanna let this bake uncovered for about 15 to 20 minutes. All right, my green bean casserole is done. Oh man, look at that. Nice and bubbly and creamy. Ooh, that smells good. Last but not least, add those fried onions on top. And I like a lot of onion. I'm gonna put all of the onions on top there.
What I do is I throw everything in one big pot. I've got 1.5 cups of rice. You really need to use our Burrell rice. It's got the right amount of starch for it. 4 cups of chicken stock. I really prefer homemade. This is 5 cups. I'm gonna put 4 in now and then add the rest later. And the best part is, put the lid on, put it in the oven, 350 degrees for 45 minutes. No standing, no stirring. Set a timer and forget about it. And then afterwards, I'm gonna add all the things that are delicious in risotto. Parmesan cheese, wine, peas. This is gonna be really good. The rice has been cooking in the oven for about 45 minutes, and now we're gonna make it into really delicious risotto. Ah, perfect. I want the rice just done. It's called al dente, just like pasta. It's just great. Now it needs lots of delicious things. So it's just gonna go on the cooktop. I'm gonna add the last cup of stock, which I've kept warm. Just pour it right in. 1/2 cup of white wine. It's all the same ingredients as risotto, just the process is different. I like to use an Italian wine, like a Pinot Grigio. 3 tablespoons of butter. If it's cold, just dice it up so it melts into the risotto. Right in. A cup of Parmesan cheese, the key ingredient for risotto. And now, this is what really makes the difference. You actually stir it really vigorously for about 2 to 3 minutes, and what it does is bring out the starch in the rice, and it makes it creamy and thick and absolutely delicious. So instead of stirring it for 25 or 30 minutes and adding a little stock and driving yourself crazy, you just stir it for 2 to 3 minutes, which I have to tell you is longer than you think it is. Okay, now the last ingredient, peas. And I'm gonna use frozen peas, but don't tell anyone. There are a couple of frozen vegetables I think are fantastic, and peas are one of them. So I need 1 cup of frozen peas. You don't even have to defrost them, just dump them right in. 2 teaspoons of salt. A teaspoon of pepper. Good news about this kind of risotto is you can really put anything in it. If you want saffron or you want artichokes, you just put it right into the basic mix. Just reheat it slightly, make sure it's really hot, and then you gotta taste it and see if it's any good. And this could be lunch. Well, it looks fantastic. It's so good.
I am making my roasted squash shells and cheese, which are creamy and cozy with sharp cheddar and a sweet smoky vibe that is unexpectedly awesome. So to get started, I have one 1-pound butternut squash that I've peeled and cubed into 1-inch pieces, along with an onion. Got some olive oil on here to help it get crispy, and I'll season it with salt and pepper, some paprika, some mustard powder, and then a little bit of nutmeg. Combination of nutmeg with cheese is cozy AF. Okay, now I'll toss this all together. Okay, this is all coated in the oil and the seasonings. I'll roast this now until the squash is browned around the edges and tender all the way through at 450 degrees for about 20 minutes. And while that goes, I'll cook up my shells. So I have a big pot of water coming to a boil, and now the difference between good pasta and great pasta is a proper amount of salt in the water. This is how the pasta gets seasoned. So I usually go for between 1.5 to 2 tablespoons. I've got a pound of shells here. I'll dump them right in. And I'm gonna cook them until they're soft. And give it a little stir. I'll let my pasta continue to cook as I check on my veggies. Oh, yeah. This is exactly what I'm looking for. Some great roasty color. So I'll transfer this right into my blender. Now to help this come together, I'll pour in 1.5 cups of low sodium veggie stock. And now that my pasta is just about done cooking, I'm gonna ladle out some of the pasta water. I'll pour in half of it now and then reserve the other half in case I need to thin out the sauce later. Okay, time to blend. Okay. Oh yeah. That's really, really velvety, and it's gonna get super creamy once I add the cheese. I'll set this aside for a sec while I drain the pasta. I'll return this to the stove. It looks good already, but come on. Cheese makes everything better. I have sriracha for drizzling later, and then 2 cups of shredded sharp cheddar, which I love with this because sharp cheddar is so loud and punchy and flavorful. Butternut squash is more mild-mannered, so, you know, opposites attract. I'll sprinkle this in gradually and just allow it to melt. In goes the last feta cheese. Okay, that is one luxurious sauce. I'm gonna give it a taste just to make sure that all the seasonings are in line. Oh yeah, that's seriously amazing. It's like the best butternut squash soup there ever was because it's so cheesy. Time for the pasta. I'll dump it in. I'll fold my shells in to get them coated in the sauce. This is the definition of saucy perfection. In my experienced macaroni and cheese opinion, the best bites of mac and cheese are enjoyed while still standing over the pot. Good thing I have this right nearby. The sriracha is necessary. You gotta have a little heat with butternut squash. It's so cheesy. The heat and the sweetness from the squash.
Parmesan roasted broccoli. For everybody who thinks they don't like broccoli, you have to try this. So it's in 2 parts. First, I'm gonna roast the broccoli. And then the next thing I'm gonna do is toss it with lemon juice, pine nuts, basil, give it lots of flavor. So it's up to you how much of the stock that you use, but I like a little bit of stock. I want it to look like broccoli. That's about 2.5 cups of broccoli. That's enough for 2. So I need garlic. I'm just gonna sliver it, slice it really thinly, give it lots of flavor. The thing about roasting vegetables is you want to do it at high temperature so it really caramelizes the flavors. Just toss it together with the broccoli. Drizzle of olive oil. It helps the cooking. Lots of salt and pepper. Just toss it all together. Clean hands. Into the oven, 425 degrees for about 25 to 30 minutes. And then I'm gonna add lots of other flavors. Lemon juice, basil, it's gonna be great. So I'm gonna make a topping for the broccoli. Broccoli's roasting in the oven, a little garlic, olive oil, salt and pepper. I'm gonna start with about 1/2 teaspoon of lemon zest, about 2 tablespoons of good Parmesan cheese. I always use good aged Reggiano Parmesan. Makes such a difference. Okay, that doesn't have to be exact amounts. I'm gonna use basil, like 6 leaves of basil. These are big leaves. I'm just giving them a quick julienne. So what I'm doing is I'm roasting the broccoli, and then when it comes out of the oven, I'm just gonna put this little topping on it. It really flavors it. Just cook it for a minute until the cheese melts. Even kids will eat broccoli this way. Okay, and then the last thing is 1½ tablespoons of toasted pine nuts. I just toasted them in a dry pan, and it really brings out the flavor of the pine nuts. You know, when they're in the jar, they're sort of bland, but when they're toasted, they're just delicious. I'm just gonna make a little mixture here on the board. Just toss it all together. Okay, next the broccoli. That looks great. Lots of toppings, give it more flavor. All the Parmesan cheese is gonna melt onto it. Pinoles and lemon zest. And then a little olive oil and lemon juice, just kind of like putting a little vinaigrette on it. Give broccoli as much flavor as possible. A little squeeze of lemon juice. Okay, into a serving bowl.
So today I'm making my pretzel stuffing with mustard and beer. It's gonna be sweet and tangy and soft and salty. I am obsessed with this stuffing. To start, I'm gonna chop up an onion and 4 stalks of celery, and I'm gonna finely chop this so it mixes in nicely with my stuffing. And same for my celery, I'm gonna use 4 stalks. And I don't mind using the leaves. I know a lot of people get rid of them, but they have more flavor there. Okie doke. My vegetables are chopped. I'm gonna get some butter heating into a pan so that I can cook my vegetables and reserve the rest to pour over the stuffing before it goes into the oven. I have my pan at a medium high, and now I'm gonna add my vegetables. I'll season these with a good pinch of salt to bring out those flavors and also to help them soften. I'll stir them around, and I'm just gonna cook these about 7 to 10 minutes until they're soft and translucent, and in the meantime, I'll mix together my wet ingredients. I'll crack in 2 eggs, and these will help bind my mixture together. 1.5 cups of chicken stock, which will add loads of flavor. And for a vegetarian stuffing, vegetable stock will absolutely work. And now the fun part, I'm gonna add 1/4 cup of mustard because you really cannot have pretzels without mustard. And now I'm gonna add a little bit of beer here. This is a German lager, and this is gonna add acidity, it's gonna add tanginess, and any alcohol in here will cook right out. And next I'll grab some honey. A couple tablespoons is perfect. I'll whisk it all together. The last thing I'm gonna do is chop up some parsley before I combine everything. Okay, and now it's time to combine everything. So, I have a bowl of torn pretzel bread here that has been dried out in an oven at 200 degrees for an hour. And that helps maintain the structure of the bread when it gets combined with the liquid. This is a great way to use stale bread too, and you don't have to use pretzel bread. I'm gonna get my vegetables. I'm gonna pour these directly into the bowl with the bread. So the liquid really softens this bread a lot, and it's important that the bread doesn't get mushy and too soft, so that's why it's good to toast the bread before mixing it with this liquid. The mixture is gonna still look a little bit liquidy when you pour it into the pan, but the bread is gonna continue to absorb that liquid in the oven, so that's what you want. The best part, I'm gonna pour more butter over it. This will bake at 375 for about 45 minutes until it's set and golden brown and a little crispy on top.
Sweet potato gratin. I know you've seen sweet potatoes done a bunch of ways. I'm not a big sweet potato casserole guy, and don't talk to me about marshmallows and brown sugar and all that. I'm not into it. But when you take sweet potatoes and put it with some onions and do what we're gonna do on the grill, we're gonna have the smokiness of the grill. We're gonna put a little char on it. We're gonna put it together with some half and half and a little bit of time. You wait, you're gonna love these. So I peeled the sweet potatoes, real fun task. I'm cutting them, don't worry about that one, you gotta offer one up. Take the ends off, try to get uniform size. We'll hit them with a little bit of salt, pepper, and olive oil and go to the grill. Started it with charcoal, got some nice oak on there. There we go. Okay, so those are all done. Let me grab a sheet tray. Slide them onto a sheet tray. We hit a little bit of olive oil, salt, and pepper, and then we'll talk about what's gonna ride shotgun on this gratin dish. How about, exactly, some sweet onions, Vidalia onions to be exact. So grab a couple Vidalia. There we go. Some olive oil drizzle, fresh cracked black pepper, and some salt. I got dogs barking in the backyard, hanging out in my back. Listen, this is my favorite time. Chilling back here, kids aren't running around, pool's not going nuts, dogs aren't begging, somebody's dog's barking, and I'm cooking and you're hanging, good deal. Okay, we move this around. We'll go down with the onions here. Having that type of grill where you can take small onions or potatoes that would normally fall through the grates and where you can get that radiant heat and you can get some of that smoke flavor coming through, just takes a regular gratin to the next level. So now we're gonna make the half and half mixture that we're gonna pour over this gratin. So we're gonna kind of partially cook the potatoes here. Not all the way, they're still gonna have to go in the oven. But what we're gonna do, get a couple cups of half and half in there. You know what makes my mouth water also? Horseradish. Talk about bringing up the flavor. I don't know, 4 tablespoons in here. I don't think you could do too much in this. And there we go. Awesome. Now we'll get a little bit of thyme in there. They can just fall right in. They're gonna steep a little bit in this half and half. Okay. There, little S&P. This is sweet potatoes that have gone savory. The thyme in the half and half, the horseradish. Harvest these off. I got some Vidalia onions, and I'm looking for that. I want that color. I don't want boring gratin that just kind of looks like it's just, you know, it's just been sitting there simmering in milk. Okay, we'll bring that off. So the gratin was 3 layers. I layered it with the Gruyere. Then you put the sweet potato, and then you put the caramelized onions, and then you repeat that 3 times. Perfect. And then you put some more of the cheese on top. This is where it all comes together, is we pour this right on top. Horseradish, thyme. You see that horseradish coming out right there? Kind of move that around a little bit. That horseradish spread out. That's just gonna soak right down into it. Fantastic. Now, we'll do that. Throw some foil on it. The wood-fired oven's rocking right around, I don't know, 350, maybe 400. 350 is what we're looking for, so we'll have to keep an eye on it. And we'll let this go for about 30 minutes. I put it on the sheet tray just in case we get a little bit of a bubble over. I don't want it burning the deck of the oven. It definitely changes the flavor of pizza. But if you have a regular conventional oven, 350, do the tray idea. It'll save you from having to do the cleanup. Okay, in we go. It's gonna be hot. But look at that, bubbling madness. Sweet potatoes done in this real savory style. No brown sugar marshmallows on this, are you kidding me? Oh, that is outrageous. Okay, so now what I need to do, slide it back in, let it brown on top a little bit, but it is going good. Sweet potato onion gratin, baked with thyme, horseradish, and Gruyere cheese until bubbly. I mean, these flavors are on point.
In my experience, if you don't make mashed potatoes for Thanksgiving, somebody's gonna complain. So I'm gonna show you my classic mashed potatoes and 3 variations just to turn up the volume. But first, I'm gonna show you something like mashed potatoes that's even more unique. It's celery root and apple puree. I made it for Thanksgiving a few years ago. Everybody loved it. Got 1 cup of chunks of fennel. You wanna cut it and have it flat on the board so you don't end up cutting your fingers off. Not a good thing to do for Thanksgiving. I'm just gonna put the fennel right in. And since this has a really complex flavor, I'm gonna put in 3 golden delicious apples and some Yukon Gold potato, about 8 ounces. Yukon Gold's great, it's got a really great texture. And then the last thing I'm gonna do is a celery root. This is one of the ugliest looking vegetables, but so delicious. It's also called celeriac. And I need about 2 cups chopped. This is the trick to celery root. Cut off the end and then stand it up before you peel it, and it's really stable. Okay, and then cut it in half. And then cut it in 3/4 inch chunks. Okay, now for some seasoning. 1½ teaspoons of salt. Salt's really important. Really brings out the flavor of all the vegetables and the apples. 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. Give it a little heat. Give it a big stir. It's gonna cook in the butter for about 5 to 7 minutes until the vegetables and the apples start to soften. I can already smell them. Okay, now I'm gonna add even more flavor. 1/2 cup of apple cider. Okay, lid on, done. Oh, the vegetables are all done. The celery root and fennel, apples, little potato. Potato gives it a little thickening, which is great. Now I'm just gonna add about 1/4 cup of cream, which is gonna give it a really silky kind of texture, a little thickening. Just put it right in. Turn off the heat, and just put all these vegetables right through the food mill. You can do this in a blender, you can do it in a food processor, but I just find they end up being very smooth, kind of like baby food. This one has a coarse blade. It has different kinds of blades, so it can be smoother or coarser. And I really like the coarsest blade. And then what you do is just turn it. No electricity, just a little hand crank. Isn't that great? It's so elegant and simple. Perfect. Okay. More vegetables. This is a great vegetable to make in advance. All I have to do is reheat it with a little bit of apple cider. And my guests, I think I just whipped it up in the few minutes before they got there. A little more pureeing. Get my exercise for the day. And just, you'll see at the bottom, just make sure you get all of it. I don't want to waste a drop. Put that together and just, you'll see really great texture, wonderful flavors. Just a little taste, make sure it's really good. So delicious. Then, before dinner, all you have to do is spoon the celery root and apple puree into a saucepan, add a little apple cider or water, reheat it slowly over low heat, pour it into a serving dish, just a sprinkle of salt, and it's ready. People are really gonna love that celery root and apple puree. Okay, back to the potatoes. So the potatoes are cooked. Test them with a knife, make sure they're perfectly cooked. And they are. So I'm just gonna drain them. Ooh, nice steam bath. Okay, at this point, basically most people would use a potato masher or a food mill, but I'm gonna do them in an electric mixer, and they come out really creamy and chunky at the same time. So good. I'll put them in the bowl of an electric mixer, turn it on low speed for a few seconds just to break them up. Then slowly add a hot mixture of 1 cup of whole milk and 6 tablespoons of melted butter. This makes the potatoes really creamy. Then I'll add 1/2 cup of sour cream, 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, 1 teaspoon of black pepper. Give it a final mix and the potatoes are done. So once you've nailed the classic recipe for mashed potatoes, you can use it for all kinds of incredible variations. Let me tell you about some of mine. Idea 1, add 3 ounces of room temperature white truffle butter to the mashed potatoes. Mix it in, and classic mashed potatoes become truffle mashed potatoes. It's so luxurious. Idea 2, add 1/2 cup of freshly grated Parmesan cheese, and you have Parmesan mashed potatoes, spicy and delicious. Idea 3, into a pan, just add 1/2 cup of garlic cloves to 1/2 cup of olive oil, bring it to a boil, lower the heat, and simmer it for 20 minutes until the garlic is soft and just lightly browned. Then turn off the heat and let it cool. After 20 minutes, add the tender garlic cloves to the mashed potatoes, along with 3 tablespoons of the garlic oil. Mix them in, and wow, really garlicky mashed potatoes. That's 3 variations that everyone will love. But don't forget the classic. It's really good too. I just can't help myself. I have to try it. It is. It's creamy and chunky. You can really taste a little sour cream. So good. I'm gonna roast it with brown sugar and get it really caramelized. It's so good. This is 2 butternut squash cubed. Cube them really large. I think they look better and they roast better. And then I'm gonna add some melted butter. It's a holiday, so you can use butter. Brown sugar, which caramelizes them. Lots of salt. Black pepper. And this is the messy part, clean hands. Just toss it all together. And that's it. I'm going to roast at a really high temperature, 400 degrees, for about 45 to 55 minutes, and the outside gets really browned and caramelized, and the inside is really juicy and sweet. And how easy is that?
Next thing on the menu is the soul food classic, cream corn casserole. I'm using about 8 ears of corn, fresh corn, that I'm just cutting off the cob. Get all that good corn milk, or just that starch that's inside the cob. That's gonna help get that casserole nice and creamy. So an easy way to cut the kernel off the cob is to get a big bowl, then get a smaller bowl, flip the bowl over to where the bottom is exposed, and put your ear of corn on top, and just using a chef's knife, just cut down on the cob. And so to get the milk out of the cob, just take the back of your chef's knife and just gently press down on it. You see all that milk coming out? So what I'm doing here is making my creamed corn. My butter is melted. I'm gonna add my corn. Right now I'm gonna add a 1/4 cup of whole milk, a few pinches of salt, a little black pepper. Okay. Now I just need this to cook and kind of thicken up. And you know what? A little extra butter ain't ever hurt nobody. I'm gonna actually add a 1/2 stick of butter to this. I want this to be creamy and cheesy and buttery. Start off with boxed corn muffin mix. I'm adding in 1 cup of sharp shredded cheddar cheese. This entire container of sour cream is gonna add a little tang to it. And 2 eggs. And I'm just whisking it until I see no more streaks of that cornmeal. Okay. Now to add that creamed corn. The consistency of this casserole is gonna be a little crunchy from those fresh kernels of corn, creamy, and it's gonna have a nice layer of brown cheese on top. I have a 9x13 casserole dish here that I've sprayed with some nonstick spray. Pour my mixture right into the casserole dish. And last but not least, I'm gonna top it off with some more cheddar cheese. Okay, my oven is preheated to 350. I'm gonna bake this uncovered for about 35 to 40 minutes, or until the top is nice and bubbly and golden brown.
So I have some butter in the pan, and I have lots of chunky, flavorful things in the stuffing. I've got 2 Granny Smith apples chopped up, 2 stalks of celery, and 2 onions. I'm just gonna saute them until they're really tender. I'll stir them around. In the past, when I used to make a whole turkey, I would put the stuffing inside, and I had to cook the turkey forever in order for the stuffing to cook. And so, of course, the turkey was dry. Not a good idea. So I found if I made the stuffing separately, I had really moist turkey and a big pan of stuffing that was moist and delicious and crispy and crusty on the outside. Now that's good stuffing. Okay, while that cooks, I'm going to put some fresh parsley in. Okay, about 2 tablespoons. Right in with the apples and onions. Tablespoon of salt. Seems like a lot, but wait till you see it's a lot of stuffing. Teaspoon of pepper. Just toss it all together. I'm going to cook this for about 10 minutes until the apples are tender and delicious, and then I'm going to mix it with breadcrumbs. You can certainly make bread stuffing with fresh bread, but I like to take a French boule, one of those round breads, cut it in big 1-inch cubes, and then toast it for about 7 minutes, 300 degrees. And what it does is it crisps it and it dries it out a little bit. And then it'll absorb all the gorgeous flavors of the apples and the onions. It'll be very good bread stuffing. I can smell the apples and onions. They're perfectly cooked. Apples are really tender. Wonderful. I'm gonna put these into the breadcrumbs, and then I'm gonna cook the sausage. Delicious apple and sausage stuffing. So for the sausage, tried a few different things. I first started with chicken sausage and basil. Sounds good, right? So boring. It was just terrible. And then I started with spicy sausage, like Italian sausage. It was too spicy. So I finally figured out that combination of spicy and sweet Italian sausage was the perfect blend. So that's what I've got, 3/4 pound combined. It's really up to you whether you want more spicy or more sweet. But it's really good, the sausage and the breadcrumbs and the apples and onions. It's just a great combination. Just mash it in the pan so the sausage is really cooked and it's broken up. So this is going to cook for about 10 minutes, and then it all goes together with the breadcrumb stuffing. Okay, while that cooks, a few more ingredients. I'm going to put a cup of cranberries in. It is Thanksgiving. Cranberries are appropriate. And just to make sure it's really moist, a cup of good chicken stock. And the sausage. Perfect. Spicy, sweet. Just dump it right in. Does that look delicious? Big spoon. Just toss it all together. Put it in a pan. Yikes. Cook the stuffing for 30 minutes until it's browned and crusty on the top and hot and delicious inside. And I would say that looks like Thanksgiving.
Cranberry sauce. Now for 1 pound of cranberries, 2 cups of sugar, and to add a little moisture, 1/3 cup of water. Once I've added the water, I can turn the heat up a little bit. I like the flavor of cinnamon stick more than straight ground cinnamon. I'm also gonna add a touch of nutmeg, 1/8 teaspoon, and 1/2 teaspoon ground allspice. I have here 1 pound of fresh cranberries. So I'm gonna give it a stir, bring it to a bubble. Now the longer you cook the cranberries, the more the water in the cranberries is gonna evaporate. Our beautiful cranberry sauce.
Now we're gonna make a gratin of cauliflower and goat cheese and some other cheeses. And this is actually a very simple recipe. Cauliflower is one of those ingredients that, in my opinion, it's sort of like, it's come back in vogue almost. It's sort of a retro vegetable. It used to be something that, you know, we ate a long time ago, a lot of, and then it sort of went away. And now, like all the trendy restaurants, they're using cauliflower in really interesting and flavorful ways. Just gonna cut the florets by hand, just kind of pick them apart. And, you know, 1 head of cauliflower goes a long way. Now, what I'm gonna do is just kind of coat the cauliflower with some heavy cream. We're not gonna fill up the casserole with heavy cream. We're just gonna sort of give the cauliflower a good coating because the cauliflower isn't actually gonna absorb the cream, so we're just gonna coat it and glaze it. Then we're gonna take some Monterey Jack cheese. Okay. And then we're gonna take some Parmesan cheese as well. Some grated Parmesan, okay? Some black pepper. Some salt. And then we're just gonna mix that around. Now we're gonna top this off with some goat cheese. Now, if you don't wanna use goat cheese, if goat cheese isn't, you're not a goat cheese fan, that's cool. You can just take this gratin right now and put it in the oven. You can serve without goat cheese. But for me, I love goat cheese. I love the flavor of it. And so I'm just gonna use a really like light flavored, fresh goat cheese to put on top. Just crumble it up and just kind of put it on top. Let's go to the oven. About 400 degrees for about a half an hour, and we'll have some goat cheese gratin. And that's what you want to see, bubbling. Take the goat cheese out and let it set.
What I learned when I ran Barefoot Contessa is I can make biscuits the night before and put them in the oven in the morning, and they're fantastic. So I'm gonna make cheddar buttermilk biscuits. The key to making good biscuits is really cold ingredients. Butter, eggs, milk. So I need 1.5 sticks of butter. It's incredibly important to have really cold ingredients when you're making biscuits because when the heat of the oven hits the biscuits, it hits the butter and the steam causes them to puff up, so they're really light and flaky. Some people actually even also freeze the flour, but I think that's a little extreme. Okay, the dry ingredients. 2 cups of flour. Just want to lighten the flour with your cup. It's really not necessary to sift it. All-purpose flour. That's 1. because I want really light and flaky biscuits. Tablespoon of baking powder. Seems like a lot, but it's really worth it. 1.5 teaspoons of salt, so they have lots of flavor. Okay, next for the butter. It's unsalted butter. Put it in with the flour and just mix it until it's about the size of peas. Okay, now buttermilk and egg. Buttermilk's actually great. It keeps baking really moist, and it's low fat too. It's pretty hard to argue when you just put 12 tablespoons of butter in something, but what the heck. So I need 1/2 cup of buttermilk, 1 egg, and both of these are really cold, so it'll keep the butter cold. I'm just gonna whisk them together. Okay, can't make cheddar buttermilk biscuits without good cheddar. I actually love like Vermont cheddar or English cheddar, something really sharp, which you really know it's cheddar. So I need about 1 cup. I'm just gonna grate it on a big box grater. You do this in a food processor, but I might get the food processor all dirty. I know Stephen loves cheddar biscuits, so I think it'll be perfect for him. So the goal is really light, flaky biscuits with lots of flavor. And the buttermilk is gonna give it a little bit of a tangy flavor, and the cheddar's gonna just give it so much flavor. Okay, that should be just about 1 cup of good cheddar. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mix it with a little flour so it doesn't clump in the biscuits. Just a tablespoon or so. And then 1 cup of grated cheddar. And just mix it all together. Okay, so now I'm ready to put it all into the mixture. So you want the butter the size of peas in the flour, and it's perfect right now. So I'm just gonna put it in the wet ingredients. So cold buttermilk and cold egg. Just pour it in pretty quickly. And the cheddar mixed with a little bit of flour. Okay, that's it. It's really fast. I'm gonna clear the decks, roll it out. So, little flour for the deck. Make sure they don't stick. And the dough, just dump it right out. I'm just gonna give it a quick knead, not so much that you melt the butter in the dough. Use lots of flour so that they don't stick to the deck. No point in making biscuits if you can't get them off the countertop. Okay, just keep flouring it, making sure it moves around on the deck. So I'm gonna do a rectangle, maybe about 10 inches by 5 inches, and I'll get 8 buttermilk biscuits out of it. So about 3/4 of an inch thick, somewhere between 1/2 and 3/4 of an inch thick. Do it in a nice rectangle like that. Okay, big knife. And sometimes even flour the knife to make sure they don't stick. Cut it right down the middle. This is the part where I couldn't find the cutter, and I thought, well, I'm just gonna cut them up. And they came out really rough and very homemade looking. I love them, just like that. Okay. Onto a sheet pan. My friend Steven's really busy, and he loves to entertain. And tomorrow I'm gonna show him how easy it is to give a breakfast party. So these are gonna go into the refrigerator. And then tomorrow, I'm gonna brush them with egg wash and sprinkle them with cheddar, and they're gonna be so good when they come out of the oven. I'm gonna show Stephen that even somebody as busy as he is can make a breakfast party. Are you busy making cheddar cheese?
I am so busy.
I made your favorite buttermilk cheddar biscuits. You're gonna really like them. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna glaze them, put a little egg wash on.
Okay.
How's that?
Tell me about an egg wash.
Egg wash is just an egg and a little bit of water or milk. Just whip it up. And what it does is, it gives a nice brown glaze to the biscuits. You know, like your mother used to make? Did your mother used to make biscuits?
My mother did not make biscuits.
So I'm just gonna brush these with the egg wash. And you're gonna put cheddar cheese on the top.
You ready for a little sprinkling?
Go for it.
Okay. Can there be too much here?
Never too much cheddar. Can I help you?
Yeah.
Okay. Right on top.
Okay.
Perfect. Oh, that might be too much cheddar. And how about a sprinkling of salt? Just gives a really nice flavor to it and looks great when it's baked. Okay, into the oven, 425 degrees for 25 to 30 minutes until they're puffed and browned and just delicious. And then we're gonna make a breakfast cocktail.
A breakfast buzz. I love it.
Okay, this needs to be shaken for like 30 seconds.
I think
You're
I
on
can
while I
handle
get the
that.
biscuits out of the oven.
Okay. I've always wanted to do the bartender thing. Those are looking good.
Aren't they great? They smell great.